So Bartolomeo's crew gets seasick. The island of Zou is actually a giant 1,000-year-old elephant, and apparently Whitebeard had a son by the name of Edward Weeble, who's a member of the Shichibukai, the warlords of the sea. All that and more in this week's chapter of One Piece. It is official! Dressrosa is over, and we can really call this the true beginning of the Zou arc of One Piece. This week's chapter was very surprising and very exciting for a number of reasons. First, before we get to the important details, I just want to say that Bartolomeo's crew is absolutely hilarious. Despite the fact that they're a group of badass, bloodthirsty gangsters, they're actually a bunch of pussies when they're out on the water. They don't ever try to use Bartolomeo's powers to protect them from hail, they get seasick constantly, and they completely freak out when they run into the island of Zou, which is actually a giant elephant. Yeah, did anybody see this coming? Did anybody imagine that there was going to be some giant kaiju Godzilla-sized elephant just walking around the ocean, which just happens to have this island on its back? That is some classic One Piece creativity, and honestly something that I didn't expect to see coming. What's really cool about the island of Zou is that this is going to be the location of the next big arc of the series. This is where Law's crew is, this is where everybody else has been heading, so I cannot wait to see what this whole island is going to be about. Apparently there's these tribes people who live on the island, known as the Mink Tribe, who apparently haven't seen people in quite some time, so they're probably going to be pretty vicious. What I will say is, this has got to be, without a doubt, maybe the most unique setting of any arc in the One Piece series. And did I mention that this elephant is like 1,000 years old? It looks all decrepit and creepy looking, but it's still massive and intimidating all at the same time. I don't even know how they're gonna board the damn thing. But now that we talked about the elephant that's in the room, let's talk about the other one. Let's talk about Edward Weeble, the self-proclaimed son of Whitebeard. He certainly looks a lot like him, except extremely exaggerated. Where Whitebeard was very tall and very muscular, Edward Weeble is very short, stubby, but still pretty freaking massive. That's what's really interesting about his design. He certainly resembles his father quite a bit. He has the typical mustache, which is much longer, much thinner. He's got scars all over his neck, his face, and his left arm. And he's also wearing these overalls, which have straps which are made out of chains. He has long, bushy white hair, and he also happens to have that one giant spear, which is very similar to the one which was used by his father, Whitebeard. We don't even know what this guy's powers are quite yet, but we can imagine that he's probably pretty powerful for a number of reasons. One, he's a member of the Warlords, so he's got to be at least a little strong. Not only that, but he took out Ao's entire crew. All of them, and we didn't even get to see how this went down. What's also interesting is that he's also joined by another brand new character, who is this old woman who goes by the name of Bucking. Apparently this was the lover of Whitebeard, and that makes her the father of Edward Weeble. They seem like they're going on some sort of grand mission to try and destroy all of Whitebeard's old crew, get revenge against Blackbeard, and they're also trying to find Marco the Phoenix. When they begin talking about him, they do remember that Marco tried to protect Luffy during the War of the Best, and they figure that's the best place to go for answers, so eventually Edward Weeble and Luffy are eventually going to meet each other, and they're probably going to throw down, and it's gonna be awesome! If there's one thing that the One Piece series has taught us, it is not to judge a book by its cover. Despite the fact that Edward Weeble looks all cartoonish and over the top and ridiculous and is basically a composite of Dr. Eggman and Willie Nelson, he still is probably going to be an obnoxiously powerful character. And to include someone like him and the whole Kaido arc and all these other brand new characters, this is just going to be another crazy arc of the series. And luckily, it's one that I can't predict anything from quite yet, especially with the whole giant island that's a damned elephant. So what's the rundown on this week's chapter of One Piece? This one was a lot of fun, just a lot of funny moments. All of the moments with Bartolomeo's crew was really exciting, and there's still all these little one-shot panels which always give me a good laugh. Like that one scene where Usopp is reminding himself that he had a 200 million bounty, and then right behind him is just Frankie, who is just seething with rage. This week's chapter also had a very funny color page at the beginning with the Straw Hat Pirates having a big banquet with some hippos. What I really loved about this was the phrase where it said that they have to eat to live, not live to eat. I think this is something that Luffy would disagree with. But the biggest surprise about this week's chapter, I think without a doubt, is the introduction of the character of Edward Weeble. I never imagined that this character was going to show up or if there was going to be anyone else who was actually related to Whitebeard. But then again, the guy was very old and he definitely got around. You know, he was one of the strongest pirates of the series and he's seen most of the world. But I really cannot wait to see what this character is going to be capable of, what type of powers he's going to have, because one of the most distinctive things about Whitebeard was that he had a Devil Fruit power, which was stolen by Blackbeard. Does Edward Weeble have a special Devil Fruit power, or is he really just pure and badass strong? Is he going to use hockey abilities? Just, the sky's the limit with this character, especially because he single-handedly took out Ao and his entire crew, although this was all off-screen, so we have no idea how he actually accomplished this. But I have to imagine he is powerful. But then again, I'm also reminded that Buggy the Clown is also a member of the Warlords, and he's not exactly the most powerful chap himself. My favorite thing about this week's chapter, though, without a doubt, is actually getting to see the island of Zoe. I did not imagine that there was going to be a giant elephant walking around in the ocean. And what's really unique about this is that since it's constantly moving, you never quite know where the island of Zoe is going to be. So that's why it's been so difficult for them to actually find this thing. It's always moving around. And the thing doesn't even look like it's alive. When they actually show its face at the very end, I guess since it's over 1,000 years old, you can't even see its eyes. They're completely blackened. It looks like it's basically going on autopilot. I really cannot wait to see how this thing is going to react and move when all of these crazy things are going to be going on its back. Because you know when Luffy and his crew get on that island, another big adventure is going to start. Is this just going to be a small detour before we get to the next arc? Or is the Zoe arc going to be a lot bigger than we realize? We're just going to have to wait and see. What I will say is this week's chapter was a lot of fun. It had some amazing artwork with the character designs of Edward Weeble and Bucking, and of course the giant island of Zoe. There were a ton of funny moments, and this was a fantastic beginning to the Zoe arc of One Piece. So I loved this one a lot. I just could not get enough of this chapter. It was wholly entertaining from beginning to end, so I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5. I just thought it was a great read with some amazing artwork. So One Piece fans, definitely check out this week's chapter. It's the beginning of another epic arc of One Piece. But before you guys leave today, I want to hear from you guys. Please tell me what you thought about this week's chapter of One Piece. Do you believe that Edward Weeble is actually the son of Whitebeard, or is this actually a ruse? And what are his powers going to be, or what do you hope that they're going to be? Please tell me in the comments section below and what you hope to see from the rest of the Zoe arc of One Piece. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!